Welcome to Still with Purpose. This is Amanda and Christy.
Our goal is to dig deep and discuss real, raw subjects in pursuit of greater self-awareness, positive transformation, and healing, and to link arms and journey with you as we discover purpose and passion in life together.
Before we jump in, we'd like to ask if Still with Purpose has ever helped you feel seen, encouraged you to heal, helped you to breathe a little deeper, think differently, or reminded you that you're not alone. Please take a moment to follow the show, leave a review, and share this episode with someone you believe would get great value from it.
That simple act helps this message reach more humans, and we are so grateful for every single one of you walking this journey with us. We're so glad you're here. Let's get into today's conversation. Today, we're talking about this question: who still has emotional access to your life because you refuse to forgive them?
After last week's, we're just going to go big or go home
on forgiveness.
So the quote this week is, "The people we refuse to forgive often become the people who affect us the longest." And I've definitely found that to be true. The people I haven't forgiven absolutely affect my life on a daily basis. Are you the same, or am I just a weirdo?
Yeah, no, you're giving them control over your emotions and thoughts.
And then I add the piece in there that I catastrophize it. So now I've made the original situation 90 times worse than the original offense by the end. If we don't have a clearing conversation about it and keep a short record of wrongs, which I feel like is really important. But if I don't have that, or there's no ability to have that conversation, then it's up to me and my thought process around the story. And I'm very creative. So I'm going to make it a pretty creative story. So that's where I have to stop myself. And honestly, I end up being the one that, I don't know, I wonder how you feel about this. I feel like I'm always the one asking, are we good? And I don't know if that's the anxious empath personality. Yeah, I think it probably is, because I just can't settle until we have a conversation.
Yeah, but I think that's also going back to the people we choose to be around, and not choosing people who make us feel okay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I hope to be around people that I don't have to ask, are we okay? Do you know what I mean? I totally understand what you're saying, feeling the need to check in and say, are we okay? But it's like, don't we want to be around people that we don't have to do that with?
That would be the goal. Yes.
Yeah. And everyone is responsible for making sure that we're being clear on where we stand with people.
That's interesting. That's a great shift on this whole thought process, because if I were with just healthy relationships with people that were moving with God and toward God and what he was doing, then it would just be natural for you to not be easily offended, be incredibly resistant to everything that's coming out of your mouth, not being offensive. You're right.
It would be easy.
So if I'm in a place where I just have a bunch of chaos, we've talked about a couple episodes ago, I am choosing people that we're not aligned.
Right. You're not wanting the same things. You're not headed in the same direction in terms of looking for and cultivating peace and relationship with God.
And therefore causing a lot of situations where I get to choose unforgiveness or forgiveness. But you're right. There's several people I could name that are incredibly healthy relationships in my life, and I don't ever have to check in with them.
Right.
Have we ever checked in with each other?
I don't think so.
When we're first getting to know each other, it's just common decency to be like, hey, are you jiving with how I talk and write?
Well, I think it's like, hey, how do you feel about this idea? Or how are you feeling about this? But it's not like, hey, we as people, are you mad at me, or did I do something to hurt? There's never that.
So when you say it like that, that's when I was an anxious, insecure personality, and I actually cared what every single person thought.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, when you get grounded in Christ, you eventually are just like, cool, it's none of my business what people think of me. It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, if it comes out of someone's mouth in a hurtful way, but does it take you out for a week anymore? No, it's probably like, oh man, you're probably having a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, oh, they don't love me, or someone's angry at me, I should fix it. But also, when you get grounded, you actually don't need closure in every relationship.
Well, and being grounded in Christ, I no longer second guess my own intentions, because I know that I want to be in tune with what God wants me to do and how God wants me to treat others. And so
when you have an off day, you say to yourself, oh, I should probably apologize for that, because that came out.
And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of times where I hear, well, your tone just sounded bad, but I often am like, well, that was not my intent at all.
Yeah.
So I'm okay having that conversation and being fully honest that like it might have come across that way, but in my heart, that's not what I was hoping for.
Yeah. I think, and once you build the trust, because we've had situations, where you had to trust that I'm not going to respond in a bad way. Like, hey, we need to switch up one of these episodes. And it meant a lot of work for both of us, but we're both like, well, yeah, we have to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I am going to protect you and I'm going to protect the people involved. So, yes, that needs to happen. And I don't care how much work it is.
Striving for the best scenario for everyone.
Yeah, thinking
Yeah.
about everyone involved instead of, no, we're sticking to this because we named it number 38.
And because I have to do more work.
Yeah.
No.
And now I'm ticked and now I'm just going to be full of resistance. And we've mentioned several times, that's not our favorite person to work with or for.
No, or anyone's favorite person.
So ultimately, if you are out of alignment with someone, you will just have resistance and constant conversations about what's not working. And eventually, I am the person that will ask several times because I'm not willing to throw out a relationship I've put a ton of work into out the door. If we can have a full conversation, hey, what do we need to change up here? Because this ain't working.
Right.
But if the other person doesn't want to have that conversation, I can't control that. Or if we've had the conversation 4 times and nothing's changed, then I don't know what to do with that.
It's very frustrating. It takes 2 people wanting to move in the same direction. No, it's true. You can't force anyone to forgive or to grow or to change behaviors. We're only responsible for ourselves.
I've had some past conversations where they mentioned something that I did 9 months ago. And it's like, you've been brewing on that for 9 months. How do I even have a fair chance at this relationship being healthy if you've never told me this? Because I don't know what came out of my mouth 5 minutes ago, much less 5 months ago. And if you've been sad and upset and angry and bitter about that comment, like, throw me a bone here.
Yeah, well, I think that goes back to communication often and more than just a few words. Like, you got to really lay it out there and talk through it.
And going back to what we said at the beginning is if you're out of alignment with someone, it might be your season. Your season's up. I know when I was a little girl, so I moved a ton. I used to move between my parents every 2 years. So I changed a lot of schools and a lot of cities. And just, I don't know, I just felt like I had to keep every single relationship that I cultivated in that short amount of time. I wrote letters to all my friends because the phone wasn't, you had to call them the exact time they were home and it was attached to a wall. Like, people don't know what we went through
right.
to get a hold of people. So letter writing was a big deal. Obviously, writing was a big deal. Encouraging was a big deal. So I had pen pals from 2nd grade on. And eventually I was just like, this is so much work. I'm like trying to keep all these relationships in order and I'm the only one doing it. I think we talked about this before, like in 2020 when COVID hit for me, I was like, hey, I'm going to see what relationships I actually have and stop striving to upkeep all these relationships. Hundreds of relationships. And what happens when you stop doing that? You find out there's about 5 people that I'm not saying those 100 people don't care about me, but there's about 5 people that are going to reach out because you did all the work for 20 years. And that was very eye-opening for me to just go, okay, so let's go ahead and put work into the ones that actually are going to reciprocate all by themselves. Like, I don't have to chase them. I don't have to, what's wrong? Are we good? How about I just find 5 people that I'm aligned with and we just really enjoy life together.
And then if your paths cross again with the other ones, that's not because you're forcing it.
Yep. I just had a friend call the other day. I haven't heard from her probably 6 years. And we were really tight for a little bit. So cool, let's go to dinner. We don't need to go into a whole, well, you did this to me. I don't even know, why our friendship, well, I know why our friendship dissipated a little bit because she was part of the ranch project. So obviously I was going through some healing and total isolation just to get through that. So, some friendships changed during that. But man, I think you hit it on the nose with the alignment is a huge piece. So forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood concepts emotionally and spiritually, because people often think forgiveness means agreement, trust, reconciliation, or pretending something didn't hurt. It doesn't mean that, in my opinion. Forgiveness does not mean you excuse betrayal. It does not mean you allow someone continued access to your life. It does not mean you suddenly trust them again. And it definitely does not mean what happened was okay. Forgiveness is about freedom, not theirs, yours. I think that find for me absolutely changed my life, because as a Christian, I grew up with turn the other cheek, give them your coat if they ask for it, doormat pretty much. And as I've grown up through that, the topic of forgiveness, I've realized, hey, it's really just about my, I don't want to say aura or essence around that person. It's really just around the energy is no longer there around that person. But that doesn't mean we necessarily hang out.
Yeah. I think it gets really complicated when they're more intertwined in your life.
Absolutely.
So I don't want to minimize how hard it can be, just to walk away from someone. It can be very hard. It's easier said than done sometimes.
Absolutely. Well, let's just say family members, because they're in your life forever, and you're constantly dealing with the misalignment that you have with them. And that's where I believe boundaries comes in. And that book is incredible because it goes through every single relationship that you would have in your lifetime and picks apart each one. What are family boundaries? What are spousal boundaries? What are kid boundaries? What are religious boundaries? Because they're all different. And it's such a meaty book because you realize, oh my gosh, I thought I had great boundaries. Yeah, I had some, but not for a good length of time. It was such a freeing thing for me to learn was no, I don't have any boundaries around most of these subjects.
That book is next on my list. I know I told you that even last night. I've been wanting to read it and needed to finish other books. And so that one is next.
Are you going to do the workbook too?
I get whatever, the whole shebang.
You got to do the workbook because I can't think of a better word than meaty. It's so meaty. You can only chew on a few bites. And also, I really feel like when you're onto something huge in the healing department, the enemy just creates confusion. And so the workbook keeps you on task for what was actually just said because it was so overwhelming in some areas. And it's like, okay, go back to the question. And it helped me get down to the root of stuff. I don't know. Questions are really important. That's why I put them in every single podcast, because you get to figure out what needs to shift in you when you hear this conversation. So here's a couple of questions that might get you to think about where this applies in your life right now. And that's what's so beautiful about that workbook. I would read 2 sentences and be like, that is so overwhelming. I'm going to have to talk to God about that this week. I only read a chapter and now I have to chew on that for a week. So dig in, girl. It's a journey. And it's one of my top.
I'm excited for it. A little terrified for it, but also excited.
Well, it just means you're totally bought into growth for the rest of your life and the best possible person you could be. I believe unforgiveness creates an internal prison where your mind keeps revisiting the pain, replaying the betrayal, reliving the conversation, carrying the anger, resentment, revenge, bitterness, or heartbreak. It drains your energy, it steals your creativity, it affects your nervous system, hardens your heart, and slowly shapes how you show up in every relationship moving forward. That's why forgiveness is not weakness, in my opinion. It's emotional and spiritual responsibility because you're committed to your future and your gifts. And I think this is a beautiful example. One of the wildest examples is Judas in the Bible. Jesus knew betrayal was coming. He still sat with him. He ate with him. He washed his feet and he loved him anyway. That doesn't mean betrayal didn't matter. It means Jesus understood something far deeper. He could not allow bitterness to interfere with his calling, purpose, identity, or relationship with God. That is such a powerful thing to look at, is that he was so committed to what he was called to do, as we should be at some point, hopefully, that we're not willing to be in unforgiveness towards someone who's betrayed us because our calling is so much bigger than that. And that's exactly where I feel I am today in this moment.
And that's such a blessing.
Yeah. And that's true freedom. I mean, I even named a chapter in my book, I Married Judas, or what it's like to be married to Judas or something like that. But my whole point is Jesus chose to love that man, and he wasn't willing to let his unforgiveness come in and steal what he was called to do. Because what if he decided he wasn't going to do all the things God asked him to do? Well, then we'd not be sitting in a very good spot right now.
Yeah. Going back to what you said, unforgiveness creates an internal prison where your mind keeps revisiting the pain. What are your thoughts on if a person does keep revisiting the pain, stirring up anger internally over and over and over, but then claims to have given forgiveness? I don't know that those two things can be true.
Well, are you asking based on the fruit I'm seeing that I'm not forgiven by your actions, even though you said I am forgiven? Is that what you mean? Yeah. So it's our responsibility to have the conversation and do the work to build back the trust or whatever was ruined in the relationship. And yet they're responsible for doing the work, figuring out if they want to keep moving forward in the relationship or they just aren't. And then you're at a crossroads because what are you going to do the rest of your life? Strive to people please the rest of your life? I'm not going to anymore. When I see myself in that, I'm like, okay, this isn't working for me.
Yeah. But I guess my ultimate point is I don't think you can live in constant anger and dwell on whatever it is that's causing such resentment within and yet say, no, I've forgiven it. Again, I don't think those two things can happen simultaneously.
Right. Because when someone asks for my forgiveness, I believe my stance would be like, yeah, our trust has changed. I definitely don't feel like you did that on purpose, or even if you did, I can see that you're upset about it, that it affected our relationship, but now our trust has to be worked on, and that might take a while.
But it's also, like you said, it's more about like yourself. It's draining your energy, steals your creativity, affects your nervous system, hardens your heart. All of those things you're allowing if you're not giving forgiveness. And those are evidence, if those still exist, that forgiveness hasn't been given.
Correct. Yeah. And I mean, what does it say? You have to forgive whatever, as many times as it takes necessary. That's a full commitment that you're going to get on the other side of this.
It's an ongoing process.
Or it could take 2 times. It doesn't have to take 77 times. It could take 2. And you realize, guess what? I'm not going to put any more energy toward this.
Yeah. I mean, if you choose not to forgive, that's a choice.
Like Jesus did. I know exactly what this man's going to do in 25 minutes. I know how many coins he's going to sell this information for. And he was my best buddy. He was one of my best. And I'm going to choose that I still need to do what I was called to do instead of get caught up in that. So really it comes down to, are we using unforgiveness to keep us stuck and unmoving because we are afraid to do what we are called to do?
Maybe.
The biggest scapegoat of all is usually the most hidden. And I think unforgiveness is a great scapegoat to not doing.
Yeah.
Have we realized how much has been stunted in our calling and gifts because of our own unforgiveness? And honestly, many of us are still emotionally chained to people from years ago because we never released what they did to us. But there's another layer people avoid. And the biggest domino, in my opinion, that lines up all dominoes of your life for the rest of your life, and it's forgiving yourself. Because ultimately, when I look at the things around people that I held unforgiveness toward, or bitterness, anger, all this stuff, if I really got down to it, I was actually mad at myself for choosing into that relationship. Not mad at them. I probably on a very deep level recognized the red flag very early on and chose to overlook it.
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to our core sentence, right? Which is our crappy core belief, which is if I'm committed to the sentence, I'm not worth sticking around for, then you better believe I picked both of my husbands and I got to be right.
Yeah. I also think there's probably some level of just not being in alignment with God and not walking close to God and not taking decisions to God, where,
Yeah.
it's not always ignoring red flags that were evident. It's just not being aware.
Yeah.
Because you weren't in the right place spiritually.
Well, and you aren't really even aware of your crappy core sentence because it comes at a very young age. You just keep repeating it and needing to be right about it, but you're not even aware of that.
Mm-hmm. And all of the things that we talk about, once you've seen, you can't unsee. So never again can you claim unawareness after you are. But I do think we are all unaware for a time in our lives.
There's all these blind sides,
Blind
that
spots.
we don't know about.
Right.
Until we get so sick of you're crazy because you keep repeating the same thing over and over, expecting a different
insanity.
Outcome. Yeah. So eventually we get to the point, hopefully, that says, I'm done with this chaos. So what about me is attracting it? And that's where it totally is going to go into forgiveness. What am I not forgiving about myself or in others that is keeping me stuck? And it's a big word. I have friends that are adamant on not forgiving a certain situation in their life. And we're talking horrific stories. And I get it. I get why they feel that way. That person obliterated their life or whatever. And I think that's why I wrote my book too, is just like, I can relate to some of your stories. And it's not worth me losing my calling and never dreaming again.
Yeah.
Be in unforgiveness toward that person.
Agreed.
Or being bitter and all the things. So forgiving yourself is a really important piece. And when I'm talking to people that are really struggling with forgiveness, I usually ask them, have you forgiven yourself first? Because man, once you forgive yourself and you work through that domino, it kind of dissipates everything else. You're just like, oh, well, if I'm forgiven and if he's forgiven me of all this stuff, you should definitely have the capability to forgive others.
I think that's key because I don't deserve forgiveness from God, and thank goodness he gives it freely. And everyone else can receive the same forgiveness, and we're all equal in the sense that we don't deserve it. And once you know that, it's much easier to forgive other people.
I just feel like some people are harder on themselves than anyone else ever was. Shame, regret, embarrassment, poor choices, staying too long, trusting the wrong person, hurting others, missing opportunities, self-sabotage, and many times the person holding your future hostage is you and you alone. Freedom begins when you stop demanding that the past become different before allowing yourself to move forward. I know we've talked about forgiveness before, but man, there's some subjects that need to be dug in on several times. And I hope this comes from a different angle of just reminding you that you are in charge of your life. And hopefully it encourages you to start looking at how you can forgive yourself for the things you've allowed or that have happened in your life that you've kept repeating.
And encouragement to take everything to God and seek forgiveness there first, as I do believe with all my heart that's where it starts.
Absolutely. And it's the same with love. If you're not capable of receiving his love, you're truly not capable of giving it to others. So same with forgiveness. So dig in. I hope that that's enough to chew on for the week.
Yep. Well, here's a little bit more. Here's some questions to think about. The first one is, who or what are you still emotionally carrying that is draining your present life? And how has unforgiveness affected the way you show up in relationships, trust, or self-worth? And lastly, what would become possible in your life if you truly released both others and yourself? Great questions.
Cool. Hope you dig into those questions and have a great week.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much for joining us today. We know your time is valuable and we're truly grateful you spent part of it with us. We hope this conversation stays with you and helps you move through the week with more clarity, peace, and purpose.
Be sure to visit us at stillwithpurpose.com. And there you can read our bios, sign up for email encouragement and updates on exciting announcements, and also join our Facebook community.
And if Still With Purpose has encouraged you in any way, please remember to follow, leave a quick review, and share with a friend. It helps more people find these conversations. Have a phenomenal week, and we'll see you next time.